Elon Musk melting liberal brains everywhere for defending free speech and taking a blowtorch to the Bidens. The Twitter CEO sitting down for a sprawling interview and says he's not afraid to speak his mind, even if it hurts his bottom line.
Do your tweets hurt the company?
You'll see it in The Princess Bride. Great movie.
Great movie.
Where he confronts the person who killed his father. And he says, offer me money. Offer me power. I don't care. I'll say what I want to say, and if the consequence of that is losing money, so be it.
The journalist tried to lecture the billionaire bad boy on conspiracy theories, but then Musk shoved it right back in his face.
You do some tweets that seem to be, or at least give support to some who would call others conspiracy theories.
Some of these conspiracy theories have turned out to be true.
Which ones?
Well, like the Hunter Biden laptop.
That's true.
Twitter and others engaged in active suppression of information that was relevant to the public. That's a terrible thing that happened. That's election interference.
As usual, the media hall monitors are furious at a guy who speaks his mind.
First of all, he's just he's like the least entertaining poster ever. He's not funny or witty. There's nothing sort of clever or interesting. He doesn't have any innate talent for it and yet desperately wants to be it.
I don't think I dread going to a site more than I dread going to Twitter every day, because you see that the dumbest stuff is underneath smart people.
He turned Twitter into, on many different fronts, a vehicle for authoritarianism. It was just bizarre. He seems to talk a lot now and spew on things that we shouldn't really be listening to him about.
First of all, I want to congratulate Dr. Perino.
Thank you.
You are now a medical professional, just like Dr. Jill Biden.
Yes, so if anything happens during the show and you're feeling like a little unwell, just let me know and I'll be right there.
Yes, I do. I'm a little constipated.
Oh, I don't really have anything for that.
Well, that's a shame. All right. You know what I love is just watching that tape for the first time, how people are emotionally connected to Twitter, and it's like a crime that it's not the way they want it to be. And it's kind of like the way they always felt about Trump. It's like, it's the tweets that hurt us most.
And actually, there's a segment coming up later in the show where it's a similar thing. It was like, oh, the good old days when there was actually no diversity of opinion. Those were really great. What I really like about Elon Musk is he is cancel-proof. So he is maybe the one person who, maybe there's more than one, but he definitely, and like Dave Chappelle, right? They come at them, but Elon Musk even more so, they come after him. He's willing to do interviews. That's a lot more than somebody else that we could mention who's supposed to be the leader of the free world who never talks to the press. So I think that the fact that he can't be canceled means, yeah, I'll come and answer your questions. And you better go to that interview prepared. Right, and the question about the Hunter Biden laptop is also a key one, because I don't know exactly what made Elon Musk, like the straw that broke the camel's back that made him say, you know what, I'm going to take this thing over. But it might have been that issue.
Yeah.
And so he knows that issue very well. So if you're going to bring it up, you better have your game face on.
Game face, indeed. You know, Katie, Dr. Perino brings up a point about this, like he's uncancelable. And it's kind of a sobering but depressing thought that the only way you might be able to be truly free is to be so rich it doesn't matter. Right. It's like it's only billionaires that have, they call it FU money, but it's like none of us have that.
Yeah. I'm glad that you said that and not me.
Yes.
Because I may have actually accidentally said the real word, which we don't want to do on TV. I think Elon Musk is entertaining. He's witty. He's smarter than all the people he sits down with for an interview. They don't come prepared. And I think, all the people who sit down with him claim that they're defenders of the First Amendment, that they are for free speech, and yet all they do is question him about why he's not censoring more.
Right.
And they're supposed to be the journalists, right? And Elon Musk clearly thinks that people are smart enough to take in information, make their own decisions about what they're consuming, and the media tends to decide that they want to run the narrative, not actually defend the First Amendment. And for that reporter to be complaining that his job is really difficult and terrible because his duty every day is to go on Twitter and peruse to find things that he doesn't like, try working construction, try working a kitchen job. I mean, do something a little bit harder and maybe you won't complain so much about your feelings.
Yeah, like being a co-host on a talk show. It's where I get my hands dirty. Jessica, before I destroy you, let's run this clip of Elon talking about Biden.
You voted for it.
I did, actually.
Do you regret that?
I mean, man, I wish we could have just a normal human being as president. That's what I want.
So you're not, obviously you're not happy with Biden.
Don't we all just want a normal human being to be
Whatever
the president?
that means.
Jessica, isn't that kind of what everybody wants? I mean, isn't it strange that it's billionaires who really are just like us?
Totally relatable. But every time they wear it, it looks better than when I wear it. It is, I think, the sentiment a lot of people feel, and that's people on both sides of the aisle. I just said we like kind of someone in their 50s with some good experience, whether that's business, you're a governor of a state and been successful, et cetera. So I did think that that part of it was relatable, and that pause actually made you think for a second, like, okay, well, what is it that I want out of my political class? But I have to push back on the idea that he came out of this looking great on the free speech issue. It wasn't touched upon, at least that I saw in it, what happened in Turkey the last few days before the election, that Erdogan had requested that all of these accounts get censored off of Twitter, and Twitter complied. Twitter actually was one of the best social media companies for free speech in the past. In 2014, they actually took the Turkish government to court in Turkey, and they won. That
What
they
was
should
his
be able to
defense,
ban.
though? Did he have a defense for that?
No. Well, he didn't talk about it in this, but no. And when you look at the accounts and people have combed through it, it looks like it was people that Erdogan didn't want speaking out in an election that's been closer than any other. They're going to a runoff. Erdogan has never had that happen before. He also, and I thought David Faber did a good job pushing him on this, when he talks about the Allen, Texas shooter and continues to deny the fact that the guy was a white supremacist. I don't know a lot of people who get a swastika tattoo and don't harbor white supremacist feelings, but law enforcement has confirmed it. And then he goes after Bellingcat, an organization, investigative journalists, that we've all spoken very positively about on the show for things that they've done, from the Panama Papers to finding the 21-year-old who leaked the latest.
But isn't this all part of free speech?
Oh, I'm not saying that he can't say it. Yeah. I'm just saying that this doesn't make him some scion of the First Amendment. It makes him a high-class troll. That's really what he is. And on the Soros front, and I don't want to get into, can you not criticize George Soros? You can make criticisms of him. But when he gets up there and he tweets that he's like Magneto, the Marvel villain who also was a Jewish person who survived the Holocaust, and then he says that Soros hates humanity, then the Jews starts trending, you know exactly what you're doing if you're Elon Musk. You're that smart. And you know that you're playing in a very dangerous anti-Semitic pool with doing things like that. And he really shouldn't. It's beneath him. It's beneath the genius of Elon Musk to be that petty and that lame.
I think every time that someone brings up how Soros-funded DAs have destroyed every city, it's not always anti-Semitism.
But I didn't, and I led with, I'm not saying that you can't criticize him, but comparing him.
But he can't.
That he can.
I don't know enough about Magento. I'm not a nerd. So I can't answer that. I'll do some reading up on it.
What Jessica is saying is you can't compare a Jewish guy to another Jewish guy, right? I mean, you compare black guys to black guys, women to other women. You can't compare Soros to another Jewish guy.
Okay.
Stop.
So
He's also a billionaire. He doesn't need you, Jessica, protecting him. Also, you're so upset a few people in Turkey got censored. How about Trump? He's our president. He didn't say anything when he got censored. Please.
Wait, when he got censored?
Excuse me. CNBC looked like they were interviewing a Martian. They usually interview like CEOs, investors, tech analysts. This guy is a software developer and innovator. Usually when you interview a businessman, he doesn't share his opinion. He's not going to say or do anything that's going to affect the bottom line. Elon's brain is not like that. Elon is a creator. He is trying to put people in outer space. He doesn't care about political correctness. This guy is about logic. And that's why in all of his companies, he's the creative force, and then they have a CEO that runs the business. And that's how it should be.
A woman.
A woman.
You go, girl.
You go.
I was thrilled.
She could even be Jewish. Another woman Jewish. Great. Don't criticize her. Also, CNBC is running so much interference for corporate America. CNBC's position now is, let's not say anything that could be a conspiracy theory, even if the conspiracy theory is right, because that conspiracy theory could be bad for business. It could be bad for Pfizer. It could be bad for any, I don't know, Facebook.
You don't know.
Any
Just
of
say, "I
these
don't know."
other companies, look what they did during the pandemic, Jessica. All of these corporations that had lots of ties to China, you couldn't say lab leak because that was bad for business. People got censored, not Turks, Americans.
But on Turkey, he did have an explanation in part, and I'm not necessarily defending it, but also we're not the leaders of an organization that is being asked to throttle some back. His explanation was you could do some of it so that the majority of Twitter can stay out there. We don't know what that's like. And I think that it's easy for us to say, oh, you should just leave it all open. But maybe that would mean that Turkey themselves would turn it all off, which is what the Iranians did and not acceptable. It's not ideal. It's just that is his position.
I understand that that's the statement of the company, but this is also the company that used to fight back against something like that. And now they're not.
Not really.
And there's been 100.
Except for they would censor Americans.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
They censored, again.
Look, we got to move on, Jessica. I'm just very happy for your sake that we have a doctor here because you are in intensive care. You are in intensive care right now. We're gonna need to staunch. Is that the word? Staunch the bleeding during the break.
I learned that in English class.
I think is that the word?
No,
staunch? I don't know.
No.
I get all my stuff from.
I don't know. Everyone should be more comfortable just saying, I don't know.
Oh, I say it all the time.
No, you don't.
At home.
I don't know.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.